Welcome back to the Cricket Today podcast on Wednesday, January 31. I'm still buzzing from an amazing week of cricket. I'm your host, Liam McAllion, also known as the Stats Guy. We got Marcus fresh back from some of the Cyclones in Cairns, and he's up and about for another week of cricket. Hey, how you going, Marcus?
Jeez, I'm going good. I'm glad to be back where it's sort of a little bit colder because I couldn't stand the humidity. I was dripping and sweating in Cairns, but happy to be back.
Yeah, awesome news. I'm not confident any complaints about someone there going up to Cairns, I reckon. We're also here with Leo Mullaly. How you going, Leo?
Yeah, good, thanks, Stats Guy. A little sad, though. We've got a bit of a quiet spot of cricket right now, so I'm just looking forward to Friday. So we've got some ODI action.
Yeah, I think we're going to go. A few of us are going to go to that match. I'm very excited for some more cricket at the G. We always love that. Being in Melbourne, based in Melbourne, so we're very excited for that one. Today we're going to cover a whole lot of things. We've got some nars from the summer tests, something that we want to just quickly talk about. Then we get into an interview with Code Sports journalist Dan Cherny. We're going to discuss Shamar Joseph, of course, who we love discussing on Monday's podcast. And then a bit about the white ball matches coming up, a few of the young guns coming in for the ODIs and then the T20s and things like that. So we're excited to talk about that. Dan Cherny was a great interview talking to him. So why don't we get right into it, lads? Actually, we're also going to cover some of our favourite ODI moments as well, looking ahead to the ODIs that Australia versus West Indies start this Friday. Some nars from the summer test. We'll quickly start with one here. Leo, do you want to read it out for us?
Yeah, so do the Aussies need to pick a specialist opener? Yeah, nah.
Oh, what do you reckon, Marcus?
I'm going to go nah, just for now, because I think we need to let this experiment ride a little bit. Obviously, if Steve Smith is moving around the crease, obviously I wasn't on the previous shows because I was away, but the way he was moving around the crease as an opener when the ball moves that much early on, you can't be doing that if you want to open the batting, and that's what led to him being called LBW in the first innings. But in the second innings, you saw he was a lot more still on the crease. He wasn't moving around, and he went and scored 90-odd not out. Obviously, he didn't go on to win us the game, but it was a great innings nevertheless. So if he just continues that, and it's all down to whether you want to fit Cam Green into this side. Although I think that he's still very young and he's got plenty of cricket ahead of him, I don't mind bringing in a specialist opener. But for now, I think you just got to let the experiment ride.
Yeah, no, I think you've actually explained that pretty well. I think, now that they've picked Smith, like we talked about this sort of question a couple of weeks ago, I think a few of us were going, specialist opener, maybe even Green, or testing a few of the younger guys out. But I don't mind it. Smith obviously got 91 not out. It was really good. Marcus, great analysis there. He kept his head down a little bit more. It was a bit straighter, a bit more, less Smith-like, less Smudger-like, where it needs to be in between, not the full smudge where he goes a bit all over the shop, a bit too fidgety. Just needs to bring it down a little bit like he did in that second innings, and he could be a really good opener. I do still back Smith. I think that you can't really bag Steve Smith at all through his whole career. So I think we still got to back him just because he's one of the greatest batsmen of all time. It'll just be interesting once we come up against New Zealand in about a month's time, when you sort of a better test team. I know we lost to the West Indies, but probably a better test team. Just be interesting if he can keep that up as opener. But I'm going to say nah for now. Do we need to pick a special? I feel like Leo's on the other side because he's been a big Cam Bancroft fan for a while.
I have been, but I think I agree with you boys. Now that we've done it, we can't really abandon it yet. I think if we were playing India or England upcoming, then abandon it, get rid of it, because they'll kill us and our top order. But with New Zealand, look, if I still have my reserve, my doubts about it, because I think someone like Trent Bolt, Tim Southey, those guys will be able to exploit him in front of the stumps. Bolt's got a great in-swinger that Smith, I can just see him getting plumb trapped in front. It's just one of those things where I didn't want to do it in the first place, but now we've done it. We have to stick with it, and it's a bit annoying, but yeah.
No, that's fair enough. I think that's maybe the Aussie selectors are probably thinking that in the back of their head as well. Just a random off-the-cuff one. I saw yesterday that Will Pucovski's still trying to get back in the test side. I know he's had a lot of head knocks, and we've talked a lot about that across the show. If he gets ticked off and stuff, there's a small part of me that goes, I really want him to play because I think he's an absolute star. But I just don't know if he's ready. What do you guys think about that one?
Nah, not at all.
Nah.
No, he shouldn't be allowed near any squad, I don't think, at the moment. Not of his ability, of course, but just off his pure health and safety. No way. He can't play. Because if he gets one head knock, And you can see he's lost all confidence a little bit in those when he's playing the short balls as well. So,
True.
No, for me, no way.
Yeah, no, I didn't think about. I forgot about that video I saw of him facing that short ball and just he didn't even see where the ball was. I think he has lost a bit of confidence. What do you reckon, Leo? You leaning towards the same or?
Yeah, it's about his long-term health, isn't it? So probably just for the best for him. Yeah, it's one of those ones where you got to reward the guys playing consistent Shield cricket.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we've rewarded some guys playing consistent BBL cricket, obviously now in the ODI squads. It's just, that Sheffield Shield to Test jump still hasn't really connected too well for the Australian Test side. And it'll just be interesting if they can, connect that in the future. All right, like we've covered a bit of ENR there about this openers that everyone's sort of talking about, the batting order of Australia. I'm going to go now into another special segment with Daniel Cherny, Code Sports journalist. We're going to add a bit of professionalism onto this podcast, lads. We talked about, me and Daniel Cherny, about all things West Indies cricket, obviously Shamar Joseph, where the Aussies broke down, wasn't too good with their batting, obviously, and looking ahead to some young guns for the ODIs and T20s at the end of this week as Australia play the West Indies. So let's get right into it. All right, Cricket Today here with another special segment. Rather than the usual knuckleheads, we've brought into some professionalism, I like to say. I'm here again with Daniel Cherny, cricket, AFLW sports journalist with Code Sports, one of the best in the business, who's up and about after being there in Brisbane for the crazy test match between Australia and the West Indies. How you going, Dan? And really, thanks for coming on.
No, pleasure to be here. Liam, good, going well and good to be with you.
Obviously, you're up there for the match. Dan, we were very, very happy that the rain held off on Friday. In our podcast predictions, we were thinking the last 2 days were going to be a bit scratchy with the rain and cyclones predicted and things like that. So very happy that the rain held off and must have been insane to be there. How did it feel to be there as the West Indies made history in Brisbane?
No, it was a real privilege to be there, obviously. An incredible game. One of those things we just get a reminder of there's nothing like live sport and for the unpredictability of it. And, I don't think anyone would have expected that sort of result, certainly heading into the match and then particularly when we're heading to the series and then given the West Indies position on day one when they were 5 for 60 odd. But an incredible comeback through the test from the Windies and even heading into the last day and with Australia sort of going along pretty nicely at 2 for 113. You thought, they should be able to get home here. But Shamar Joseph, just, what an extraordinary story. And, from nothing, from this guy from a remote Guyanese village to come through, have all the injuries that he had, the injury that he had, didn't look like he was going to be able to play at all on day 4 of the test, and then to run through Australia like that with one of the great spells really of modern times, or really of all time, certainly for a touring bowler on Australian shores, it was something special.
Yeah, Dan, you quickly touched on it there, but we have to talk about the man of the moment, Shamar Joseph. I think he's my favourite cricketer in the world at the moment. You also mentioned that he's playing through that injury was unbelievable. I just want to know, what did you make of Shamar Joseph's 7-for? I think you touched on it briefly just then, but quickly, a bit more in depth into that. And where does it rank for overseas players' figures in Australia? Because I thought it was up there with some of the very best.
Oh, it has to be right up there. I mean, particularly in the circumstances, given he's the second gamer, given the injury concern, given the challenges, the quality of lineup he was batting, against, a team featuring a guy like Steve Smith, who obviously did survive in the end, but, an accomplished batting lineup with the likes of Travis Head and Mitch Marsh, they weren't mugs that he was getting. He did run through the tail, of course, as well, but no, it's got to be right up there. I mean, I heard my colleague Robert Craddock talking about this the other day, and he was sort of pointing to Curtly Ambrose's famous 7-for-1 spell at the WACA in 1993, about 30 years ago. And Richard Hadley took 9 for against Australia at the Gabba in the mid-80s. Look, they've been a handful, but this is top shelf. And as I said, particularly given the circumstances, given the how little this guy played at all. But you're right. I mean, you talk about his favourite cricketer. He's sort of everyone's favourite cricketer instantly. I mean, how could you not like him? He's got charisma. He's got a bit of cheek in him, just that raw pace, but that skill as well. It's not just the subtle movement and just knowing where to bowl. To have those smarts, as I said, you can have the pace, but to then be able to put it all into action at a crunch time like that, just exceptional and well deserved as player of the match and of the series. And it's going to be fascinating to see what happens from here for him, because you think this is perhaps only just scratching the surface of a guy like this' talent. He hasn't had the build up that some other guys have had. Maybe that rawness is an advantage, And, I suppose he's in his physical peak at 24, but extraordinary bowler. And, it's going to be, as I said, intriguing to see what comes next for Shamar Joseph.
Yeah, I definitely share your excitement with Shamar Joseph. It's going to be excited to see what happens in the future with him. He's obviously signing the PSL this week in the Pakistani Super League, so very excited to watch him tear it up over there. They didn't pick him in, it's easy to say this in hindsight, but they didn't pick him in the ODI squads, the West Indies. Do you think the West Indies will struggle in the white ball matches coming up after not picking Shamar Joseph, Dan?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I suppose, look, it's such an afterthought, these three ODIs in particular. T20s are a bit more relevant heading into a T20 World Cup in June, and Australia picked a much stronger side for those T20s than they have for the ODIs, where they picked 3 or 4, I think it might be up to 4 or 5 uncapped guys. Lance Morris, who has been around the Test squad before, but probably going to make his international debut. You've got Will Sutherland, Jake Fraser-McGurk, Xavier Bartlett as well. So there's a handful of guys who we haven't seen much of. And then a guy like Aaron Hardy, who's only had a taste, and even a Matt Short, who's still relatively new to international cricket. So it's a very, very young, particularly bowling attack that we're going to see. In terms of the Windies, look, they actually coming in not bad one-day form. I mean, they did miss the World Cup, which was obviously a huge blow to them, but they did beat England in a series late last year in the Caribbean. So they're actually not a bad. If you're looking at where heading into this tour, you would have thought, where would the West Indies maybe be a chance? You would have thought, well, maybe in one of in the white ball formats where there's less. I suppose the shorter the match, I suppose the more of a lottery it is. In terms of Joseph's non-selection, you're right, it did seem a bit baffling in hindsight. I mean, clearly this guy, he played so little cricket, and I suppose they didn't know what they had. It sounds like he's now got an injury, or that injury has come up, so he's probably not going to go to the UAE, where he had been due to go to play for the Dubai Capitals, which is David Warner's club. So, look, I suppose there's an element there where. In the end, he probably wouldn't have played anyway. It would have been great for the series, given he is so in vogue. I mean, it's hard to believe that he may have been the biggest draw card of all, especially in the absence of some of the big-name Aussies. There's no David Warner, clearly he's retired from the format. Glenn Maxwell's been rested, as two of the main quicks, and Mitch Marsh. But, look, the Windies and some of their white ball guys, there'll be a fair few names there that we haven't seen much of either, especially given that they weren't at the World Cup. They turned over their squad significantly, say, from 2019. When they were last in the 50-over World Cup. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare. I think that they're not without a chance, especially against an inexperienced Australian side. I think Australia still go in as probably favourites, but without being absolutely overwhelming favourites.
No, excellent analysis there, Dan. I think you hit the nail on the head. In hindsight, obviously, it's easy to pick someone based on what they've done now. No one even knew what he was going to do. So I think in hindsight, it's easy to say, but they'll still put up a strong fight with, as you mentioned, with a strong ODI squad. Quickly on the next one, Dan, Steve Smith obviously finished with a strong 91 not out as opener, but there's been a lot of questions, few articles floating around on Twitter and Code Sports as well. Does Australia need to change their test batting lineup at all, do you think?
It's a good question. I mean, you look into the series and the talking points were around, obviously, the remodeled top 6 and clearly the 2 guys batting in new positions, they being Smith and Green. Green has plenty of experience, number 4 in first-class cricket, but not in test level. And I suppose heading into, given neither of them set the world on fire in the first test, those were probably the 2 guys most under the pump heading into the second test. As it so turned out on day 4, they were Australia's 2 best batters, particularly Smith, clearly with the 91 not out, but Green, did get to 42, and those 2, they had the game in reasonable control. Now 42 is not, clearly wasn't a match-winning performance, but it's a start, and it's solid. So the guy that's most struggling at the moment really is Marnus Labuschagne. He's had a very poor series, averaging just a bit over 6 across only obviously a few innings, but it's not just this series. It's been sort of a pretty steady decline over more than 12 months now. Now that's from an incredible high, and he'd probably been a bit lucky. When I say lucky, not since he's not deserving of his runs, but he'd been, just had the rub of the green with drop and some umpires' calls, those sorts of things that just, things had gone his way. So perhaps there's a bit of regression to the mean. His average has dropped from 60.82 to 50.82. So, look, I think it's just a combination of factors. Travis Head, the nature of a player like that, he's going to be a bit hit and miss. And, no greater example in these couple of tests gone. A match-winning century and then a king pair. So, doesn't really get any starker than that. Mitch Marsh is an interesting one in the sense that, obviously he's made a very strong return to the test side. Excellent in the Ashes. Really good series against Pakistan. Not so against the Windies. And I just do worry a bit whether having him at 6, I think is fine, but whether you can have Green at 4 and him at 6, I'm just not quite sure that it's quite a sturdy enough 4, 5, 6, especially when Marnus isn't making runs at 3. So look, Kawaja's been very consistent. And but he's also the oldest of them. So it's just not firing all cylinders. Look, they've managed to overcome some of this inconsistency over the last 12 months to achieve most of their major goals, and the bowling's got them out of a few holes or 1 or 2 performances here or there. Head stood up, or Marsh stood up, or Marnus stood up in that rain-marred test in Manchester back in July. But really, this is not a batting unit which you'd think is going to get better in its current incarnation. Perhaps Green is the one who has the upside, but the rest are all, Marnus is 29, the rest are all over 30 or over. And it's not, you tend to, it tends to be downhill from there. So they can't rely on Usman for that much longer, you wouldn't have thought. Ditto Smith. So it's just getting to an interesting phase. And, these couple of tests in New Zealand are important. I think the one thing that's probably been lost a little bit in the broader debate around Australia's performance at the Gabba was the implications for the World Test Championship.
Of course, yeah.
They've got only because it's a 2-test series, it sort of counts, each test counts more. So the way that WTC works is that each series, the value of each test is relative to how many tests there are. So weirdly enough, an Ashes test is actually worth less than, considerably less, 2.5 times less, say, than a West Indies test, because it's only 2 tests, so it's divided, it's 50-50 as opposed to 20%. Yeah. But that's quite a big chunk of Australia's home points that they would have banked for, and which Pat Cummins said ahead of this summer were non-negotiables on the back of also losing some points for net run rate. For overrate infringements there in England. So they've got 2 tests in New Zealand, then 5 next summer against India and 2 against Sri Lanka. They're not going to, because of some of these other results around the cricketing world. We saw the incredible India-England test, South Africa winning against India in a test, and got New Zealand coming up against a weakened South Africa coming up. A lot of teams are sort of beating each other, which probably means that there's a bit more room, breathing space for Australia. But we're not talking a hell of a lot of breathing space either by that token. And they would have banked on beating the West Indies 2-0. They haven't done that. So as McDonald, the coach, said post-match, they're really going to have to make one up, and probably going to have very little margin for error either in New Zealand or in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, wow, Dan, I didn't actually think about the insight into the World Test Championship, obviously 2.5 times. I didn't actually think about that. So that could be critical. I know it's 18 months away sort of until the World Test Championship table's done, but that could, make some changes. That loss of the West Indies could cost us, but we'll have to wait and see. Also interesting, like you mentioned, a lot of players out of their prime in our batting lineup. Just going to be interesting to see over the next couple of months, even against the New Zealand, how we actually go. Finishing off, awesome to see some BBL stars in the ODI squad. You did mention them, Jake Fraser, McGurk, Will Sutherland, Xavier Bartlett. Awesome to see how they're going to go into the Australian ODI squad and see who gets picked. Do you think the Aussies have chosen the right squads for the White Ball series? I feel like you're pretty confident and happy with what they've done here. And anyone else that you would have included in these squads?
Look, it's so interesting. It's the question, I suppose. Ultimately, the question is, what are you trying to achieve from these games? I mean, before you sort of say, and where does that fit in within your broader goals? Because there are 3 formats. There's so many considerations these days. Players are at different stages of the schedule. Some guys play 1 format, 2, 3. 2 of the 3, different 2s of the 3. So there's so many different considerations here. And I asked McDonald about this after the test. Say, for instance, with Steve Smith, who's captain of the side. What is the point of Steve Smith playing this series? Now, other than, I'm sure, it probably helps with ratings and having a player like Steve Smith's caliber and having some experience with the side is important. But, you've got a Champions Trophy 12 months away, which is an important tournament, but, realistically, that is a year away still. And I don't know how important it is for Steve Smith to be performing now ahead of the second most important ODI tournament in 12 months' time. Yeah. Look, I think they've done, put it this way, I think they've certainly done the right thing by resting the quicks in the circumstances. I mean, would mean you just don't need Pat Cummins, which is necessary, these games, and similar Mitch Marsh, given the all-round demands on him and given he's now the T20 captain effectively. Look, I think of the others, I think, Inglis, I think, makes a lot of sense. Clearly, it's now his spot with the gloves to great form. Matt Short looks like a rising player across possibly all 3 formats, but certainly in the white ball formats, and was very close to making that World Cup squad. Wouldn't have minded seeing Tanvi Sanger have a go on home soil as a spinner, although it's tough with Adam Zampa there as well. Are you ever going to play two spinners in a white ball match in Australia? You're better off Tanvi going back and playing some red ball cricket. And in terms of hard to say, and in terms of the quicks, look, I'm glad. I think Fraser McGurk's fantastic to have a look at him. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with no Maxwell. He's mini Maxwell in many respects, right down to sort of his somewhat loose attitudes towards life.
Yeah.
And some of the abandon that he plays with. He's been mentored by Maxwell. And then the quicks. Look, Bartlett was interesting. I had a really good big bash. I'm a bit surprised that Spencer Johnson didn't get a look in. And to be fair, that was named just before the BBL final, and then Johnson really kicked on in the finals. So, maybe a touch unlucky, and they've had a look at him, and maybe they're better off with Spencer Johnson, him getting some Shield cricket. This is with some of these guys that are multiple players, it's just so hard. But no, look, I think it's great to see Sutherland get a go because I think he's a rising star, and it's going to be tough for him with so many all-rounders around. Yeah. I think it's Cameron Green. You could argue he'd be better off with a bit of Shield cricket, but still good to see him get some more proper international cricket under his belt, particularly ODI, where he hasn't played that much and was in and out of the side during the World Cup. Butler, Lance Morris, I think it's great to get him a taste of international cricket. So, and Hardy is a really exciting player as well. So, I haven't really answered that question particularly well, but there are a lot of different. There are a lot of considerations, and it's not straightforward, and that's the nature of the landscape. And then you've got other guys like Marcus Stoinis, who's probably off the ODI radar now, but he's gone off to play in another country. So he's playing in South Africa. So it's going to be really interesting to see where it all heads from here.
Yeah, spot on, Dan. I love that reference to Mini Maxi. I'm, as a Renegades fan, I'm up and about with Will Sutherland, but definitely Jake Fraser McGurk. The way he plays his cricket, very positive, and Mini Maxi is a great call. I'm very excited to see how he goes, and it'll be interesting to see who gets picked in those ODI squads or the white ball squads in the coming months. I think that's it. So check Daniel Cherny out on Code Sports. Some great articles at the moment all over Twitter. Some great posts and good fun on there. And thank you very much for coming on, Dan.
No, thanks, Liam. Looking forward to next time.
Now let's get right back into the usual Cricket Today show. All right, back to the usual show with the usual knuckleheads, Marcus and Leo and the stats guy. Let's have a look at our favourite ODI moment. So Australia play the West Indies on Friday, 2:30 at the MCG. I'm very excited to head down to that one after work. So that should be a good fun match, especially the way the West Indies held up in the Test matches. I think a lot of people had them being really competitive in the ODIs more than the Test matches. So the fact that they did really well in the Test matches should make it a really good series here. Let's have a look at some of your favourite moments of all time. Leo, do you want to start us off? You stole my one. I love this guy in ODIs, and I know he fell off the face of the earth a little bit, but he had a really good short stint for Australia.
Yeah, tough luck, stats guy. Get in fast the next time. James Faulkner, the finisher against England in 2014. I think this innings right here made me fall in love with cricket, to be honest. So we were 9 for 244, I want to say. Clint Mackay strolls out to the wicket, and everyone goes, we might pack up here, go home. Catch the early train home because this game is done. And then Faulkner just absolutely turned it on its head with some massive slogs over cow corner, mid-wicket, square leg, whatever you like to call it. Absolute fine hitting against the Poms too. Could not be better. Ben Stokes was getting smacked. You love to see it. It was an absolute – it was an amazing day for Australian cricket. Got us home in the final over. I think he made – I can't even. It's one of those. I don't even know what he made. It's just a great innings.
He got us over the line. Yeah.
I remember the graphic came up. He was on 50 off however many balls, and he didn't hit one 4. It was all sixes. That's all I really remember. I actually don't remember what he made, but it was just Well, we had fantastic innings.
We had Tim Bresnan bowl in the final over. It did they England, and I think they needed. Well, we needed 12 of the final over, and he hit him for 3 fours in the first 3 balls of that final over to win the game.
He made 69 of 47 balls. That included 5 sixes, as you said, Leo. Lots of sixes. 146 strike rate. What did Clint Mackay? Two not out. Clint Mackay. He held his own. Kept in there. A few others. Who else? Glenn Maxwell made 50. Marsh made 50. This is a really good match actually. Then you got. Some of the bowlers got smacked around for Ben Stokes got smacked around 7.4 economy rate. You love to see that. and the Aussies got the job. Yeah, that is one of the best moments. The finisher. There was a solid couple of months where anytime we have a bit of a collapse, the Aussies, you're like, oh, James Faulkner's coming in. It's all good. The finisher, he'll finish it off for us. So
he did it on more than one occasion as well.
Yeah. He did it at least 3 or 4 times, I reckon.
Is he Australia's most clutch ODI player?
Or I think Bevan, as you mentioned before the show, he had a few. He was the original finisher in the coloured white ball cricket, but he's up there. It's funny because you wouldn't say he's up there for the best players, but clutch. In our lifetime, I'd say he's the most clutch at least. Yeah, no, pretty good. All right, who have you got, Marcus? You got another Aussie?
Yeah, well, I've got an honourable mention. You just mentioned him, Michael Bevan.
Yeah.
I wasn't even alive for this, but it was 95-96, I'm pretty sure, Australia versus the West Indies, like the upcoming series. And we needed a 4 off the last ball to win, and Michael Bevan hits it straight down the ground, just almost clipped the umpire's head, actually, and then hits it for winning runs. I still remember the commentary in my head, like, that's it, that's 4. And then we win the game. But my favourite moment just has to be Glenn Maxwell in the recent ODI World Cup, doesn't it? Against Afghanistan on one leg, hobbling around. We're talking about clutch players and finishers. Glenn Maxwell hitting 201 against Afghanistan. I remember when WinViz had us, 1%?
I think so, yeah.
At some point.
Not that WinViz.
I reckon Marcus Biz would have had it a little bit higher with Glenn Maxwell in. But no, that was one of the best ODI innings, and arguably the best ODI innings of all time. So I think it just has to be that.
Yeah, it definitely was. I still can't believe that even happened. It feels like just the other day, actually. But I can remember that whole innings. The highlights of that were unbelievable. Maxi just looking like he's about to fall over every shot. The power in his wrists and his forearms, he obviously got injured after that because all of his power was coming from, sort of like golf. He's a gun at golf as well. And that was just unbelievable. You've obviously got Bevan. I'm glad we chucked Bevan in there. 4 off the last ball. Got 78 off 88 balls and steered Australia home against the West Indies. So, yeah, really like those ones. I'm going to talk about, stay away from the Aussies, my favourite innings of all time. My favourite innings of all time that is not an Australian. Leo loves this one as well. Chucked it up on the socials not that long ago. South Africa versus the West Indies. In comes AB De Villiers. He scores the fastest ever 100 in ODI cricket. It still is, off 31 balls. It was a pretty small ground, but don't worry about that. I just remember this classic pink top. I love this, the pink top that the South Africans were wearing, really different to anything else they've ever worn. And AB just made this pink top memorable. Everyone was buying it. I remember a lot of people, even Australian supporters, were loving this top. He was pulling out shots from all angles. He's probably one of the original guys that could play 360 degrees around the ground with ramp shots. He was playing down the ground, reverse sweeps. He was unbelievable. Had 149 of 44 balls. And I think that other than maybe Maxi is the best ever ODI innings. It was against West Indies were bowling okay. They had towards the end though, they had the guys that were getting absolutely smashed. The top 3, which makes this sound a little bit worse for South Africa, made over 128 each. So they were getting absolutely smacked. But AB said, "No, I'm going to make it off a lot less balls than you guys." 149 of 44 in those classic pink tops. I think has to be my favorite. Do you guys remember watching that one at all?
Oh yeah. That was a great innings, wasn't it? Just like seeing him play those shots around the ground. You're just thinking, when's he going to miss hit one? And he never did.
It was crazy. Yeah, I couldn't believe that one. I might have to get one of those South Africa pink tops, actually. I keep saying that, talking up that top. I'll see if they're around. I'll have to wear it on the next live show or one of our next shows. Might cop a bit of grief. Not the best colour going around, but they look pretty cool. All right, I think we've got through our favourite ODI moments. Big thanks to Dan Cherny for today's show. That was a really fun interview. I learned a lot, actually. He taught me a lot of things about the Test Championship and things like that, and the Test Championship table. So that's it from us. Another Cricket Today show. Get right around the show. Subscribe on your podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. Like and review it, would you? Chuck a follow to Cricket Today and Cricket Today AU all over the socials. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. Chuck a follow to Daniel Cherny on Twitter. He chucks up a lot of good posts there and his articles from Code Sports. Also, chuck a follow to Football Today and Football Today AU. We've got a big EPL midweek midweek preview, actually, show that's gone up this week. We're going to do another weekend preview as well, which will be very exciting. Send in any questions via the socials, anything you want us to chat to us about. That's it, I think, guys. And we're done for another episode. Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks, that guy. I reckon you look cute in pink.
Oh, thanks. I'll take that. Thank you. Thank you, Leo.
Thanks, Stats Guy. I disagree with Marcus. I think you'd look terrible in pink.
Oh, thank you. That's all right. I'm happy to be somewhere in between there. I'll have to practice my shots like AB and see how I go from there. And thank you very much to Jared for producing. Thanks to AB De Villiers for producing that awesome effort in the pink top. That's another episode of Cricket Today done. We're out.